If you've ever wondered how someone can cheat and still look completely loyal, this breakdown exposed the hidden psychology behind it all. The truth isn't always in what people say. It's in how they think, feel, and redirect emotion. Understanding these mental patterns isn't just about catching lies. It's about learning to see the deeper truths in human behavior. So if you're ready to go even deeper into the psychology of relationships, attraction, and emotional strategy, hit that subscribe button right now. Join this community where we uncover what most people ignore: the unspoken truths about love, loyalty, and human nature. Because once you understand the mind, you'll never be deceived by the mask again. Emotional redirection is one of the most powerful psychological strategies women use when hiding cheating. And it works so effectively because it plays directly on human intuition. Most people expect distance, mood swings, and emotional coldness as signs of betrayal. But emotional redirection flips that logic completely. Instead of pulling away, a woman who feels guilty or afraid of being caught will often lean in harder emotionally. She becomes more affectionate, more available, and sometimes even more loving than before. It's not always calculated. It can also be a subconscious attempt to soothe guilt or to restore emotional balance within herself. But to an unsuspecting partner, this change feels like reassurance, a sign that everything is solid. In reality, it's the perfect psychological smokescreen. When guilt arises, the mind looks for a way to neutralize it. For women who are naturally more emotionally expressive, this often translates into compensatory affection. She might text more often, express care, or become physically closer. It's her mind's way of saying, if I show love, it cancels out what I've done. This self-deception also comforts her emotionally. It helps her believe that she still values her partner, even while betraying him. The act of overcompensating becomes a form of emotional justification, and it makes detection almost impossible because it contradicts the traditional signs of cheating that most people are trained to look for. This psychological redirection also reinforces the partner's sense of trust. When someone receives more love, they naturally let their guard down. They stop noticing small inconsistencies because they are emotionally fulfilled. The mind, when at ease, is less alert to threat cues. This is why the timing of affection is often so strategic. It usually occurs right before or after moments of infidelity, serving as emotional insurance. A kiss before going out, extra tenderness during conversations, or renewed interest in the partner's well-being. All of these behaviors reset the emotional tone and disarm suspicion before it can form. What makes emotional redirection so powerful is that it doesn't rely on lies. It relies on emotion. When affection feels genuine, words are secondary. A partner will trust what they feel far more than what they hear. Women instinctively understand this emotional language and use it to guide perception. They know that if their partner feels loved, he won't question loyalty. It's not about deceit for its own sake, it's about control. Control of how emotions are perceived, and control of the narrative that defines the relationship's atmosphere. But beneath the surface, emotional redirection reveals something deeper: a war between guilt and fear. Guilt pushes her to make amends emotionally, while fear drives her to maintain the illusion. This internal conflict often leads to sudden bursts of affection followed by quiet withdrawal. But those shifts are rarely noticed because they're masked within the flow of normal relationship behavior. The irony is that in trying to appear honest, she may become more emotionally available than ever, making her betrayal feel impossible to believe. In that way, emotional redirection becomes not just a cover, but a psychological art, an intricate balance between protecting her secret and preserving the emotional safety that allows her to keep living both lives without breaking down. Selective honesty is one of the most subtle yet effective psychological tools women use to hide cheating. And it works because it blends truth with omission so seamlessly that it feels real. Most people are trained to detect lies through contradictions, hesitation, or nervousness. But selective honesty avoids all of that by grounding every statement in partial truth. The deception doesn't come from what's said, it comes from what's left unsaid. When a woman tells her partner, "I went out with friends," that could be entirely true. What she doesn't mention is who joined later, what happened afterward, or why certain details are missing. By giving fragments of the truth, she creates a story that sounds authentic because technically it is. This approach disarms suspicion and builds a strong illusion of transparency. This method is deeply psychological because it uses a partner's own trust against them. When someone tells you something that sounds honest and logical, your brain wants to fill in the missing details automatically. Humans crave narrative completion. So, when she provides a believable foundation, the partner unconsciously fills the gaps with innocent explanations. The mind prefers consistency, and selective honesty delivers just enough consistency to maintain peace of mind. It's a mental shortcut that makes the deception nearly invisible, because the story checks out in every way that matters on the surface. What makes this technique even more effective is the emotional delivery. Women often rely on intuition and emotional tone when communicating, so they understand that the way something is said can matter more than the content itself. A calm tone, steady eye contact, or a relaxed smile reinforces the illusion of honesty. Since most people equate composure with truth, selective honesty thrives on emotional control. It's not about the details, it's about the emotional impression created during the conversation. If the partner feels reassured, he rarely digs deeper. Selective honesty also helps manage guilt. A full lie feels heavy and morally wrong, but telling half the truth allows her to feel that she isn't completely deceitful. She convinces herself that she's being mostly honest, which reduces cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that comes from acting against one's values. This psychological justification keeps her emotionally balanced while maintaining the secret. She can tell herself, "I didn't lie, I just didn't say everything." It's a comforting illusion that allows her to hide without feeling like a liar. Another layer to selective honesty is strategic consistency. The details she shares are often simple, repeatable, and believable over time. She never adds too much complexity because details create potential cracks in a story. Instead, she keeps her version minimal, casual, and aligned with her known habits. The simplicity is what makes it convincing. There's nothing extraordinary about it. The human brain interprets ordinary details as truth because deception is usually associated with exaggerated storytelling. Ultimately, selective honesty is not just a form of concealment, it's a psychological performance. It relies on emotional intelligence, timing, and intuition. The most dangerous lies are those wrapped in truth because they bypass logic and appeal directly to trust. And that's what makes this technique so powerful. It doesn't fight against suspicion, it prevents it from ever forming. Psychological mirroring is a subtle yet remarkably effective way women conceal cheating because it involves reflecting back the very behaviors and emotions that create trust. When suspicion begins to surface, or when she senses even a slight shift in her partner's energy, she instinctively starts mirroring the emotional cues that communicate loyalty, openness, and love. She might initiate deeper conversations about honesty, show more interest in her partner's daily life, or even express mild jealousy about things that seem insignificant. To an outside observer, these behaviors look like signs of emotional investment, but in reality, they're a form of psychological camouflage, a way of keeping suspicion at bay by embodying the very image of faithfulness. Mirroring works because humans naturally trust those who seem emotionally aligned with them. When someone appears to think and feel as we do, our brain releases signals of comfort and safety. A woman who is hiding something understands this dynamic, consciously or unconsciously. She knows that if she behaves like a person who values loyalty, she'll be seen as one. So she mirrors emotional patterns that reinforce that perception. She might start asking more questions about her partner's boundaries or bring up topics related to loyalty in a casual way, creating an illusion of moral alignment. This not only redirects suspicion, but also strengthens her emotional bond with him, making him feel more secure in the relationship. The key to this strategy is timing. A woman who uses psychological mirroring doesn't just mirror randomly. She does it when tension or uncertainty begins to build. If her partner seems distant or curious about her activities, she reacts not with defensiveness, but with emotional engagement. She might suddenly become affectionate, empathetic, or deeply attentive, mirroring his emotional state and softening any rising doubts. This emotional synchronization diffuses tension and makes questioning her seem unnecessary or even unreasonable. Because when she's showing care and vulnerability, the idea of deception feels out of place. What makes psychological mirroring so powerful is that it plays directly on emotional perception rather than logic. Most people don't analyze behavior logically in relationships, they feel it. When someone's energy matches ours, it creates harmony, and harmony reduces critical thinking. That's why even subtle mirroring, like adopting similar communication patterns, interests, or emotional tones, can create an atmosphere of intimacy that overshadows any inconsistencies beneath it. The partner becomes emotionally blinded by the feeling of connection, which is exactly the goal. Yet, behind this mirroring lies an internal conflict. The woman often mirrors not just to deceive, but to restore balance within herself. By acting faithful, she temporarily silences her own guilt. It allows her to live two realities without confronting the emotional chaos of her actions. But this balancing act has a cost: constant self-monitoring and emotional calculation. She must always stay one step ahead, reading cues and adjusting her behavior to maintain the illusion. It's both a performance and a defense mechanism, one that reveals the complexity of human psychology, the deep desire to protect one's image, even at the cost of authenticity. In the end, psychological mirroring isn't just about hiding the truth. It's about maintaining control over how reality itself is perceived. Routine control is one of the most sophisticated psychological methods women use to conceal cheating because it exploits one of the most powerful elements of human behavior: predictability. People trust patterns. When someone's schedule, habits, and actions remain consistent, our brain interprets that as stability and honesty. A woman who wants to hide her infidelity understands this, whether consciously or instinctively. She keeps her routines exactly the same, or sometimes even becomes more disciplined with them, so nothing seems out of place. She might go to the same gym, meet the same friends, use the same excuses, and maintain the same rhythm of communication. It's this consistency that disarms suspicion because when everything looks familiar, nothing feels wrong. Routine control operates on the principle of psychological conditioning. Over time, her partner learns to associate certain activities with trust. If she has always gone out with a group of friends every Friday night, that pattern becomes normalized. When she later uses that same pattern as cover, it raises no alarm because the brain links it to a history of harmless behavior. This mental conditioning is what makes routine control so effective. It turns ordinary habits into shields of credibility. By keeping her life structured and predictable, she creates a version of herself that seems transparent and reliable. But this consistency is rarely random. It's strategic. She carefully chooses what to keep the same and what to slightly modify. For example, she may maintain her regular schedule but adjust small details such as leaving earlier or staying out a bit longer, framing it as something normal or even productive. These subtle variations are hidden under the umbrella of routine, making them invisible. If questioned, she has a logical explanation ready because every adjustment seems rational within the structure of her usual life. The secret lies in the balance, changing just enough to accommodate her private life without altering the overall pattern that defines her public one. Another layer of routine control is emotional consistency. She ensures her moods, energy levels, and behavior remain in sync with what her partner expects. Sudden mood swings or visible guilt could expose the truth, so she manages her emotions carefully. This requires self-awareness and discipline, a kind of internal emotional regulation that allows her to act naturally even when she's hiding something significant. Because emotional predictability builds trust just as much as behavioral predictability. Maintaining that emotional rhythm becomes part of the routine itself. The brilliance of routine control lies in how it manipulates perception, not evidence. It doesn't erase the truth, it hides it in plain sight, within patterns so ordinary that they become invisible. The partner stops questioning where she goes or who she's with because the brain automatically labels familiar patterns as safe. This is why many betrayals go unnoticed for so long. The consistency itself becomes the disguise. In the end, routine control isn't just about managing time or behavior. It's about managing belief. It's a psychological illusion of normalcy, carefully maintained so that the reality behind it never has to be questioned. Emotional compartmentalization is perhaps one of the most psychologically complex ways women manage to hide cheating, because it allows them to separate different emotional realities within themselves without them overlapping. It's not about coldness or lack of empathy, it's about control. The mind learns to create invisible boxes for different parts of life. One for the relationship at home, filled with affection, comfort, and loyalty, and another for the affair, filled with excitement, curiosity, or validation. Each emotional world operates independently, allowing her to fully engage in one without emotionally contaminating the other. To an outside observer, this creates the illusion of stability, because she can maintain genuine warmth toward her partner while simultaneously living another life that satisfies a different emotional need. What makes this skill so powerful is that it relies on emotional intelligence rather than manipulation. Women are generally more attuned to their emotions and can identify and regulate them quickly. When guilt, fear, or confusion appear, she doesn't necessarily suppress them. She organizes them. She places each feeling where it belongs so that no single emotion overwhelms her behavior. This mental compartmentalization keeps her from revealing subtle signs of guilt or anxiety that would otherwise expose her secret. Her ability to appear emotionally balanced, even while carrying conflicting desires, becomes her greatest disguise. This mental separation also allows her to rationalize her actions. She might tell herself that her relationship and her affair fulfill different roles, that one provides security and love, while the other brings passion or validation. In her mind, these aren't in direct conflict because they exist in different emotional spheres. By dividing her inner world this way, she avoids the full weight of guilt that usually follows infidelity. It's not that she's unaware of the moral implications, it's that she's learned to silence one emotional voice while listening to another. The mind becomes an expert at maintaining boundaries between these emotional spaces, ensuring that one world never exposes the other. Emotional compartmentalization also manifests in how she communicates. She knows when to switch emotional tones, when to act nurturing, and when to appear detached. It's a performance so seamless that it rarely feels forced. Around her partner, she can show affection naturally because in that moment, the part of her that genuinely loves him is the one in control. When she's with the other person, a different part takes over, one that is driven by curiosity, novelty, or desire. Each identity feels authentic in its own setting, which is why even close friends or partners struggle to detect inconsistency. However, this psychological skill comes with a cost. Keeping emotional realities separate requires constant vigilance and mental effort. Over time, maintaining the illusion drains energy and erodes authenticity. The mind begins to blur the lines between the compartments, and the emotional strain quietly builds. Still, in the short term, compartmentalization allows her to live two lives without collapse, to protect her secret while preserving her role in both worlds. It's not always about deceit. Sometimes it's about survival in a situation where emotional needs conflict. But whether used consciously or instinctively, emotional compartmentalization is one of the most powerful tools the human psyche uses to hide the truth behind a calm and convincing smile. Projection and guilt reversal are powerful psychological defense mechanisms that women often use to protect themselves when the weight of their actions begins to surface. These behaviors don't always stem from conscious deceit. Many times they are the mind's way of escaping the discomfort of guilt and maintaining emotional equilibrium. When a woman cheats and starts to feel the emotional consequences, guilt, fear, or anxiety, her subconscious looks for a way to relieve that tension. One of the simplest ways to do that is by transferring those emotions onto her partner. Instead of confronting her own guilt, she projects it outward, accusing him of being distant, secretive, or even unfaithful. It's not that she's intentionally trying to manipulate. Rather, her mind is trying to redirect uncomfortable feelings away from herself. Projection works because it reshapes the emotional narrative of the relationship. When she accuses her partner of things she herself might be doing, the emotional focus shifts. Suddenly, she's the one who feels wronged, not guilty. The attention is no longer on her actions, but on her partner's supposed behavior. This redirection creates confusion and defensiveness in him. He begins to question himself. Did I do something to make her feel this way? And that self-doubt is exactly what allows her to maintain control of the emotional dynamic. It's a psychological diversion tactic that turns vulnerability into power. Another layer of this behavior is guilt reversal. Instead of openly expressing remorse, she subconsciously converts guilt into justification. She might begin to believe that her actions were a reaction to her partner's emotional neglect, lack of attention, or inconsistency. In this way, she reframes the betrayal as a consequence, not a choice. This narrative helps her maintain self-image and emotional stability, because the human mind struggles to live with moral contradiction. By reversing guilt, she can continue functioning in the relationship without the crushing weight of shame. The narrative shifts from, I did something wrong, to, I had no choice but to do what I did. It's a powerful form of emotional self-preservation. In practice, projection and guilt reversal often appear through subtle arguments or shifts in tone. She might suddenly become suspicious of her partner's phone habits, question his loyalty, or express feelings of neglect that seem exaggerated. To him, it feels random or misplaced, but in her mind, it's emotionally logical. By externalizing the discomfort, she feels temporarily relieved. What's more, this behavior reinforces her emotional control. She dictates when trust is questioned, when affection is withdrawn, and when reconciliation occurs. In this sense, projection becomes both a shield and a weapon. The irony of projection and guilt reversal is that they create a temporary illusion of balance while deepening emotional disconnection. Over time, the partner becomes emotionally exhausted, trying to prove his innocence or meet demands that can't truly resolve the underlying issue. Meanwhile, she continues to carry her secret beneath layers of misplaced emotion. It's a defense that preserves the appearance of normalcy while silently eroding authenticity. Ultimately, projection and guilt reversal reveal how far the human mind will go to protect its image and avoid pain, even if it means rewriting reality to escape the truth.